Yeah, it's just a lot of reaction yesterday when I shared with you some of the job offers that are out there. Right on the doors when you go into the supermarket or the bank or the pharmacy. Signing bonuses, time and a half on Sunday. If you want to work for Hannaford, you get 6% off your grocery bill. $15 an hour just to bag groceries in the back for the special orders like online. Time and a half on Sunday. I guess there's no young people that want to 18 and 19 years old that want to make some money. I don't know where the workers are. $1,200 to sign on to be an assistant in the pharmacy at a major drugstore. You want to be a part-time bank teller, $1,200 signing bonus just to learn how to do that. What a country. And who knows when, these staffing shortages and the supply chain stuff is going to let up a little bit. But someone who may is Mark Mix. He's been on the show before. He's president of the National Right to Work Committee, which is a nearly 3 million member public policy organization. He's also he's president of the National Right to Work Legal Defense Foundation. But he might have an opinion on the supply chain issues. And I was just ordering something online yesterday, Mark. Welcome back to the show, GMI Studios. And they said, well, it was a Christmas order. And I'm thinking, get here next week. And they said, well, it won't really ship out till the Christmas Eve because it's on back order, supply chain issues. What's making this worse? Why isn't this problem getting better?
Yeah, Jack. Well, thanks for the opportunity to be on and talk with you a little bit about this because we had the same problem. My 21-year-old son, who still believes in Santa Claus, needs a pair of pants, and my wife tried to order them online, and they won't be until January 25th. So I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe cookies and milk under the tree, but we're just going to have to figure something out. But yeah, Jack, there's lots of issues here, and several of them are government-created. That's no surprise to you and your listeners, I think. When we look at how government's involved in the regulatory regime that basically stops people from driving trucks onto the port in Los Angeles and Long Beach, those two ports are responsible for 40% of the imports in the United States. They come through those two ports, and right now, as of Sunday, there were 96 container ships waiting out in San Pedro Bay and beyond because the government changed the definition of who's at anchor and how many ships are there. They've moved them out farther, kind of like air traffic control, making someone circle around the Manchester airport when they're circling over, Western New York or something, and they don't count that as someone that's delayed. But there are lots of issues here, and obviously one of the issues is the power of organized labor when it comes to the docks and the ports and how we staff the ports, how the ports operate, the efficiencies of the ports. And a lot of that comes down to the power of a very small group of union officials, the International Longshore Persons Warehouse Union out in California on the West Coast and the International Longshore Person Association here on the East Coast. I've been listening to your show, Jack, so I'm very careful with my pronouns here, and I need to make sure. So, but those issues, that power is something that's very unique and something that's not talked about. And let's talk about California real quickly. One of the problems is the ability to get truck drivers to come in, bring chassis in, and have these containers put on chassis, and through the drayage process go to a warehouse or go to a railhead or go into the economy. But California passed a law back in 2018 that basically says if you're an independent owner-operator, you can no longer work at the ports in California because you have to be an employee of a motor carrier. And one of the secrets to that sauce, Jack, is that unions can't organize independent owner-operator truck drivers, but they sure can organize employees of motor carriers. So the idea of forcing more workers into unions comes into play when you think about a shortage of around 70,000 truck drivers that used to service the ports. In fact, 80% of the truck drivers that were moving containers around the port and through that drayage system were owner-operators that now are basically ineligible to go participate unless they give up their independent contractor status, their independent status, and become an employee of a motor carrier. That's part of the problem, and no one really talks about that.
And this president, this administration, they're not going to take on those powerful unions. They're not going to do that.
Exactly right. In fact, Marty Walsh was out at the ports, a week ago, I guess, saying, hey, things are going great. We're going to get this straightened out. But yet the government hand on this, the so-called emissions standards that were passed in California, and they're basically national, saying that if your truck was built before 2011, if you have a 2010, conventional Kenworth truck, you can't service the port anymore because it's likely it won't pass the emissions test. I mean, these are things that are really problematic and causing this back. Yeah.
Well, policy, laws, orders have consequences, and people don't realize them, but then all of a sudden hits you, and you're wondering, why is the traffic jam? what's the problem here? Common sense is not going to prevail. Politics is at the root of a lot of this crap, and it's just going to, when you were talking about especially the West Coast situation with all those ships out there being held out until they can be, processed coming in, and the staffing shortages. One thing you and I never talked about, and I shouldn't have mentioned, but it makes me nervous because I think of some of the folks I know in the military community who think this way all the time. What an opportunity for the bad guy, right? You want to really disrupt our system even more. The unions and the policies and some of the environmental policies are already causing the traffic jam to be more. You want to, I think of terrorism and how vulnerable those ports are because you could really mess up our supply chains even more than they're already messed up.
Yeah, absolutely, Jack. And people write books about that. I think a guy named Tom Clancy wrote something about that at one point in time. But yeah, there's all kinds of issues that play out here, and there are issues. Allegedly, when COVID shut down Europe and the Pacific region and China for a couple of months, there was backlogs, and so yeah, we do have a little more capacity in here. But the idea of government control and government regulation, and then the politics of it, to your point, have really played into this. And everyone wants to ignore that. But the fact is, that's one of the major problems here. There is no shortage of warehouse workers out in California. You talk to people that are out there working, companies that are providing services, they say, no, we don't have warehouse worker shortage. What we have is a truck driver shortage, and that is a creation of government policy, no doubt, no question.
Mark Mix, I appreciate it. And best way for people to learn more is how?
They can find us at nrtwc.org, Jack, nrtwc.org.
All right, thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Jack.